Hello buddies, welcome to Borderline Games. I'm Gareth and today we're playing Reigning City Millions Recollections. Now, I don't know much about this game, but I do know that it's brought to you by the same team that brought you the Chrono Jotter, and that is a series that we had on the channel, and that was a fun game. I would highly recommend checking that game out if you haven't already. Reigning City Millions Recollections is a demo. We don't actually have a full game yet, but I thought I would open up the demo and give that a try. So we're going to do that now by pressing new game. Ooh, what a noise. Alright, don't get distracted. Orca layout. The Hole. Le Trou. Part 1. Ooh, already interesting name. Liu Xuan? Is that how you say that? Liu Xuan. Liu Xuan conjured an image in her mind. A white cruise ship sailing across the vast ocean, its bow slicing through the waves, creating a melodious roar of water. Flocks of seagulls glided on their currents, slowly drawing near. After the rain, the sun shone brightly, baking the deck that had been washed by the night storm. Passengers awakened from the tempest of the previous night, now embarking on a new day of life aboard the ship. I've just noticed I've got some money that can look at me. That's weird. Suddenly, the leader among the seagulls issued a piercing cry, seemingly beckoning its companions to keep pace. The surrounding seagulls, stirred by the urgency of their leader's call, swiftly converged, curious about the new discovery that prompted such an eager summons. It seems that the original vessel was methodically disposing of its compressed scraps and scraps and remnants into the sea, attracting a multitude of fish that followed the enticing scent. This in turn allowed the seagulls to indulge in a lavish feast merely by following the ship's wake. The crescendo of their calls summoned an ever-increasing flock of seabirds. Even the passengers aboard the cruise were drawn to this scene, reminiscent of a landscape painting, eagerly taking out their cameras to capture the moment. Amid the clamorous passengers and squabbling seabirds, the cruise ship's immense smokestacks languidly exhaled thin wisps of smoke that painted the skies bright and the ocean calm. I feel like we might need a second pass on this English translation. Liu Xuan recalled the teachings of a psychology professor on how to steady turbulent emotions. Envision a safe, stable sanctuary in your mind. But limit yourself to 3 seconds. The ticking time bomb in front of you, your necrotic finger, or the footsteps outside the door could, at any moment, be your escort to meet Jimmy. No one in the classroom knew that Jimmy was actually the teacher's favourite musician. However, his mention was followed by a laugh that sounded eerily like a howler monkey, sending the entire class into uproarious laughter. What are we talking about? This laughter now seemed to float above the cruise ship, mingling with the tendrils of smoke. Liu Xuan felt her tension dissolve completely.
1、2、3。
1, 2, 3. Liu Xuan counted 3 seconds, and her vision, which had been missing for so long, finally returned home. She could see the familiar ceiling above her, but her body remained paralysed, unable to move, not even her eyes. Suddenly, Liu Xuan heard a distant sound. Liu Xuan felt as if her ears had been pricked by needles. Becoming abnormally sensitive, they picked up a ticking sound, growing closer and more rapid.
在下雨，而且很大。
It was raining, and heavily so. Let me just very quickly... settings. Main volume, background music, sound effects. I guess I can't turn down the vocal audio, which is fine. I guess I'll just talk after. Or over. Liu Xuan tried to sniff, and her belated sense of smell, tinged with the scent of blood, instantly jolted her brain. This also made her desperately want to regain the last sense, not under her control. Liu Xuan furrowed her brow, straining to recover her sense of touch. Her efforts soon paid off. She felt herself propped against something soft, with the sensation of sweat-soaked skin against her back. Then, struggling, Liu Xuan managed to lift her right hand to touch her chest, feeling fabric soaked with some kind of liquid. Is that blood? By now she almost understood her condition, but the scene she pictured hinted at imminent danger. She wanted to control her body, to at least be able to lower her head, to survey her surroundings, but to no avail. The vast ocean, the cruise liner, and once more sunlight made its appearance. Liu Xuan inhaled deeply, the pungent, acrid smell of blood flooding his nostrils, prompting every muscle in his body to tense as if recoiling from the odour, though it also made them easier for Liu Xuan to command. Good. Liu Xuan turned her head to survey her surroundings. Okay, I'm already noticing a pronoun issue. The living room of her home, dark because the lights were off. Despite the gloom, it was clear that the usually orderly furniture had been tossed about, as if a typhoon had ripped through the area. Get rid of that now. Liu Xuan looked down and saw her white shirt violently torn open, stained with a red liquid that eerily resembled the gaping maw of a great white shark. Slipping her hand inside, she found slipping her hand inside, she found her bra still in place, though its front clasp had been ripped apart. It was as if someone had used a sharp blade to viciously split her chest open, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Yet her chest bore not a single scratch. Liu Xuan momentarily set aside her doubts, pushed herself up from the couch, and immediately heard a thick, dripping sound behind her. She walked a few steps, then turned back to see a blood-red cascade draped over the sofa where she'd been seated. The most vivid stain was exactly where her back had rested. If someone had stabbed through my chest from the front and then made a downward cut, the blood would have looked just like this. However, she felt no discomfort whatsoever. In fact, she felt unusually strong, as if she could break the record for a 500-meter specialty obstacle course, and maybe even toss a disagreeable superior 10 meters away with one hand. Oh, okay, cool. But now is not the time for such thoughts. Liu Xuan noticed her close partner lying in front of the couch on the glass coffee table, a toffee cable, next to a spare magazine. She stepped forward and picked it up. The silver handgun, named the Beethoven 1900, was developed in-house by the agency. It was the only gun she was permitted to carry off-duty. It fired 9mm rounds and held 8 in the magazine. Liu Xuan tilted the handgun. Noting the safety was off, she promptly engaged it, ejected the magazine, and saw from the cutaway that 6 rounds remained. She couldn't recall having fired the gun recently. Her memories were mostly of concluding a 3-month-long mission yesterday and beginning her leave. After returning home, she'd planned some rest, but then her recollection skipped to the present. She reinserted the magazine. As it clicked into place, a roll of thunder echoed from outside. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the room. Liu Xuan widened her eyes, staring at her left palm. An oval-shaped black hole had appeared in the centre, perfectly integrated with her skin, yet it disregarded the natural undulations of her muscles, remaining a smooth, flawless oval from every angle. Is it a wound, or something else adhered to my skin? Liu Xuan decided to slowly bend her thumb to touch the mysterious oval. Ugh. What the fuck is that? Suddenly a swarm of tiny black monsters burst from a dark hole, writhing wildly in the palm of Liu Xuan's hand. They clamped her fingers, reaching toward the base of her thumb. and then circled back. She slightly leaned back, yet her gaze remained locked, utterly captivated. The black monsters began to swirl around an oval center, evoking images of primitive cave paintings with simple lines depicting people engaged in eerie, ritualistic dances around a campfire. Liu Xuan's curiosity far outweighed her puzzlement as she watched, mesmerized by the spectacle. As the chaotic dance of the black lines subsided, their movements became orderly. They bent and straightened, gradually taking shape into the forms Liu Xuan could recognize. Soon the monsters settled into static patterns, transforming into simple lines. Liu Xuan slightly lowered her head, meticulously tracing the patterns that now adorned her hand. Oh, is it this here? This up here? 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100 million. Is this 100 million? The numbers that appeared in the center of her palm paused briefly before they rapidly trembled and retraced back into the dark oval. Liu Xuan unconsciously licked her lips, only then realizing they were cracked and bleeding. An overwhelming array of mysteries stacked up like a landslide in the fast lane of her thoughts, demanding she take a moment to methodically sift through them. However, before she could even divert her gaze from her palm, another clap of thunder resounded. Liu Xuan's eyes widened as she fixed her gaze on a shadow lurking beneath the shattered glass coffee table, then abruptly turned her head. Whoa, is that just a tree? The shadow outside seemed to react to her stare. Stirring to life, it bent forward its jagged back, rising ominously before it moved and shattered the glass. Oh my god. As the sinister shape entered the room, its back scraping the ceiling, Liu Xuan could see its skin, cracked like drought-ridden earth. Raindrops fell upon it, absorbed instantly, yet they were far, far from enough to moisten such a parched form. Along with this unusual figure, a horrendous stench invaded her home. It was a thick, putrid blend of rotting flesh and filth, so overpowering that Liu Xuan could almost hear flies buzzing around as if holding a gathering in her house. Stop daydreaming! Liu Xuan imagined a cruise ship breaking through a filthy sea toward dawn. As she raised her gun and flicked off the safety, she fired 2 shots. The unique melodious sound of the gunshots resonated like piano notes, soon followed by the thud of bullets, lodging into a thick tree trunk. The monster, resembling deadwood, slowed its steps momentarily before collapsing onto the ground. Its drooping white filaments lightly touched the ground before it suddenly sprang up, its slender limbs rapidly propelling it toward Liu Xuan. The hissing sound of rainwater began being absorbed by its skin, slightly stirred Liu Xuan's innate sense of fear, like the gentle flicker of a snake's tongue. As Liu Xuan backed away, she fired her last 4 bullets. Swiftly, she pulled a spare magazine from her pocket and reloaded. But just as she chambered a new round, the monster caught up with her and knocked her to the ground, a suffocating stench enveloping her. Struggling to flip herself over, she found the beast's weight too much to manage, trapping her firmly. The rumbling sound of the massive tree moving caused Liu Xuan's head to ache. The dark deadwood monster split open its trunk, revealing a dark green diaphragm that writhed continuously. The previously limp white filaments now stood erect like dandelion stalks. Liu Xuan felt the monster grab her right arm, pulling her toward the gaping split. Her mind screamed with alarms, a red flash of danger. No! Hell no! Suddenly, a horror she'd never felt in her 27 years surged over her like a flood, overwhelming her senses. I wonder if she's going to be another member of Team 27. You heard of that? Liu Xuan's right arm shrank rapidly inside her sleeve. Her pink skin turned to ash as her muscles were gruesomely exposed. The smooth, orderly tissues contracted violently, resembling the limbs of a dead insect. She screamed in horror as an unknown red substance seeped out from her sleeve, quickly absorbed by the deadwood. Within seconds, only the white bones of her right arm remained. Meanwhile, the deadwood's withered limbs flourished maliciously, sprouting pulsating black tissues like boiling mud. Reflexively, Lo Xuan raised her left hand to grab at the branches of the deadwood, noticing the black lines in her palm, dancing wildly once again. This time the number was missing one digit. It had dropped by 2 million from the initial 1 billion. Oh yeah. She had no time to consider what this meant, as every second was a luxury while the cruise ship teetered on the brink in the violent storm. Once again, Lu Xuan swung her left arm to retrieve the handgun that had dropped nearby. She swung it behind her back and rapidly fired 6 straight shots downward. Years of rigorous training had honed Liu Xuan's muscles to precision, enabling her to fire her gun without a tremor, even in dire situations, with each bullet striking nearly the same spot. After a series of sharp gunshots, one bullet finally pierced the body of the deadwood and lodged into the ceiling. This seemed to destabilize the monster, momentarily lifting its body and giving Lu Xuan a chance to roll away to safety. Quickly, she pushed off the ground with one hand, leveraging her solid core strength to flip back onto her feet. Once stable, Lo Xuan immediately checked her right arm. It was unharmed, but the terrifying sensation she'd experienced with the vigorous black flesh of the monster was stark evidence that her arm had temporarily vanished. What? Terrifying sensation. And the vigorous black flesh of the monster was stark evidence that her arm's temporarily gone. Is it back now? Lu Xuan switched her emptied handgun to her right hand and glanced again at the left palm where the number now read 96 million, so her arm hasn't gone. So it's decreased again, I see. Gasping for breath, she temporarily set aside the scattering debris in her thoughts to concentrate on the monster before her. The deadwood seemed enamored with the burgeoning black muscles on its body, swaying as though appreciating a fine wine, clearly not yet satisfied and poised to attack Liu Xuan again. But as it bent down, it abruptly twisted and froze. Facing the window, Lu Xuan glanced outside and noticed the rain was easing, soon to stop. The deadwood seized the moment, flipped over and crawled out the window into the night. Holding her breath, Lu Xuan tightened her grip on her handgun and slowly approached the window. She leaned against the wall and peeked outside. The underbrush in the villa area was dishevelled and scattered, with a trail leading off into the distance. Soon, the rain stopped, and the movement in the bushes ceased. Lo Xuan kept keyed up, her eyes fixed on the silent darkness until even the foul stench had completely disappeared. Only then did she turn and lean against the wall. I need to figure out what's going on before it rains again. The storm had subsided, and feeling slightly more at ease, Liu Xuan activated her phone's flashlight, hoping to uncover some clues in the living room that might explain the events during her memory gap. However, the recent scuffle had only left chaotic footprints on the floor, some resembling animal hooves or snake-like marks, likely just muddy stains left by an intruder who had entered during the rain. Realizing the urgency of the situation, she quickly pocketed her phone and headed into the bedroom. There were 2 wardrobes in the room. The left was filled with a variety of clothing reflecting recent fashion trends and several uniquely patterned and material canes at the bottom. Hang on. The left was filled with a variety of clothing reflecting recent fashion trends and several uniquely patterned and material canes at the bottom. Okay. The right, when opened, revealed an array of exclusively black garments, resembling a bat cave in its stark uniformity. Liu Xuan didn't hesitate. She approached the right wardrobe and selected a bra, a shirt, and a trench coat. The sound of gunfire and shattering glass must have drawn attention. I should avoid the police for now. Once they've left, I'll head to the security office to check the surveillance footage. Hopefully it will reveal what happened while I was unconscious. As Lu Xuan considered whether she should clean the bloodstained shirt and sofa cover, she pulled out a drawer from under the bed, took it out completely, and then retrieved a briefcase hidden underneath. The case held all the essentials for her work. She took 2 spare magazines from the case and stashed them in the inner pockets of her coat, then refilled the empty magazines with the remaining bullets. That was all the ammunition she had left. If I start cleaning up now, I won't have time to leave before the police arrive. I'll have to leave it. Also, this mysterious hole that appeared in my hand seems connected to everything else. I should visit Baiwei to see if he can figure something out. The dressing table beside her bed was cluttered with cosmetics, some of which Liu Xuan couldn't even recall the use for. Likely a side effect of being away on missions for too long. But there was no time to sort through them now. She grabbed the car keys from the dressing table, picked up the briefcase, and made her way to the garage. Stepping out of her room, Liu Xuan glanced at her phone to unlock it. After her old phone had been destroyed during a previous mission, her colleagues had persuaded her to buy this trendy new model, which she was still getting used to. She manually typed in Baiwei's number and pressed call, contemplated the years it would take to rebuild her emptied contact list. At exactly 2:20 AM, she was about to hang up, not wanting to disturb Baiwei's sleep, but he picked up the phone just in time. Hello? You're back? Baiwei sounded energized, clearly not just woken from sleep. I got back yesterday. We can talk details later. Are you on tonight? Yeah, what's up? Did they send you back without fixing you up? I'm fine. No injuries. Baiwei's awkward concern helped blur the lingering fear inside Liu Xuan, replacing it gradually with a sense of security. But I need to see you. Is the clinic busy? Not busy. Come on over. Okay. Liu Xuan ended the call, pressed the garage door open, and waited for as the roll-up door began to rise, detecting a strange smell. The foul odour left by the monster was now more annoying as her adrenaline had subsided. She planned to grab the citrus-scented roll-on perfume from her car's storage box once inside. Just a quick shake and application on her wrists and behind her ears would allow the fragrance to rapidly evaporate with her body heat. As the garage door fully opened, Liu Xuan eagerly stepped into her black electric car, ready to drive through the quiet streets of the night. Oh. What's going on here? Okay. Head into Baiwei Private Clinic. What does this do? No. How do I go to the left? Can I go to the left? Can I go to the right? I guess not. So we've got that. I don't know what that says. That's where I am, I assume. And then we have the private clinic, so I guess we'll go there. Take me. There we go. Take me! Liu Xuan pushed open the frosted glass door of the clinic and immediately spotted Baiwei with his back to her, meticulously arranging medical supplies on a metal rack beside the hospital bed. Unsure of what injuries she might have, he had prepared a variety of medications and a large stack of white bandages. Where were you hurt? Just lie down. Liu Xuan waved her hand to indicate she was really fine, but Baiwei looked her over skeptically. After a thorough check, he finally felt reassured enough to remove his sterile gloves and settle back into a swivel chair. So this is the first time you've rushed to this clinic in the middle of the night, without any visible bullet holes. This mission was lengthy, but not particularly dangerous. Liu Xuan responded, walking over to the window and pulling back the curtain to ensure that the dark sky was not beginning to rain. However, if you're asking about the wounds... Liu Xuan removed her glove to show Baiwei the unusual condition on the palm of her hand. Baiwei now 47, had previously studied in Canada and worked there as a surgeon during a time of frequent large-scale protests and riots. Renowned as an outstanding orthopedic specialist, it was routine for him to perform 5 surgeries a day due to the heavy caseload during those tumultuous times. After the situation had stabilised, 7 years had swiftly passed. Eventually, Byway decided to return to his home country with his wife and opened a private clinic, which he still operates today. Over the years, Byway had seen numerous cases of physical trauma, becoming somewhat desensitized to them. However, the black oval on Liu Xuan's palm was disturbingly unusual, causing his hair to stand on end. Does it hurt? What does it feel like right now? Byway grasped Liu Xuan's wrist, leaning in closely to inspect for any signs of the black ellipse tearing through her palm, but he could discern nothing. Let's get an x-ray first, and you can tell me what happened. Liu Xuan nodded. Double-checked that it wasn't raining outside, and then followed Byway out of the examination room. As they walked, she began to explain the chaotic scene at her home and her encounter with the Deadwood monster. On the other side of the city, several police cars had pulled up in front of Liu Xuan's house, the red and blue intertwining lights constantly swirling and scanning the darkened driveway. Residents were poking their head around the windows in their robes. Apparently, the sleepiness of the earlier morning hours hadn't dampened their excitement to get together at all. What a weird way of putting it. Okay. The officers from the criminal room were talking and laughing, seemingly having only arrived not long ago and still making preparations before forensics. However, the leading captain took a phone call and began to greet all the officers present as they closed up. The incident, which took place in the centre of the city and in which the caller claimed to have heard gunshots, came to an abrupt end, and there was no more official investigation. With the sound of distant sirens, the rain fell again. Okay, that was just a little cut to the house. After sharing a harrowing ordeal, Liu Xuan knew Byway would need some time to digest it all. She leaned against the clinic's window, making a call on a basic phone to her boss, since the police had visited her home. The loud noises from a confrontation with the Deadwood monster had undoubtedly alarmed the property management, who likely decided the best course of action was to check the situation and then call the police. The agency usually facilitated smooth interactions with other official bodies, but also encouraged its members to avoid unnecessary complications with external organisations. Considering both personal relations and the agency's unique nature, that was like a Dr. Seuss poem. Encouraged its members to avoid unnecessary complications in external organisations, considering both personal relations. That's insane. Therefore, Liu Xuan braced for a reprimand, but was surprised when her boss didn't even ask her to file a report. Instead, he simply acknowledged the situation and said it would be handled. He also mentioned that there were a significant issue with the agency's records, with no new missions missions would be forthcoming soon. Liu Xuan ended the call with some confusion, but since she wasn't a clerical worker at the agency, she didn't need to worry about the archival issues. Meanwhile, Byway was examining the X-ray films of both hands. Would you say X-ray films? Which he had clipped onto a light box. The images of her left hand clearly showed an oval obscuring the X-ray, appearing as a stark, dark spot. Might need to run some more tests, but I'm hesitant to provoke whatever this is. It's tricky. Liu Xuan nodded, pondering her next steps if she couldn't find help here. Has anyone else ever gone through something like this? I have a dermatologist friend who's seen a lot, and he's also a lot, you know? You won't want to spend too much time with him. I'll ask him. For now, just don't go anywhere. Stay in the Egret City, and wait for my update. Thanks, Bai. Let's set that aside for now. Please take a seat. Lao Xuan sat across from Bai Wei and immediately noticed his lips twitching unnaturally, a sign of his nervousness from her past encounters with him.
精神科的事我不了解，只能简单问你几句。
I'm not versed in psychiatry, so I can only ask you a few straightforward questions.
我精神科
Me? Psychiatry?
你说的话我都
I
相
believe
信。
everything you're saying, but... Bai Wei leaned forward, clasping his hands tightly.
你刚才提到的枯木，
The deadwood monster you described is clearly something unusual. Given its size, it'd be hard to move around the city unnoticed,
隐蔽行踪，
and I can't make sense of your arm's rapid muscle growth or its
肌
body.
肉我也无法理解。
What? Your arm's rapid muscle growth?
在此之前，
You've never seen anything like this before, right?
没有，我是
No, this is my first encounter. He's talking about the actual monster, not my arm, right?
我
I
知
don't
道
know.
你这行的
I
人
know your training prepares you to handle sudden situations calmly, but this is different from any prior scenario.
吕璇，
Lo
明
Xuan,
白吗？
do you understand?
这已经不是
This
心
is
理
no longer just a matter of mental resilience. There's something off about your condition. Lo Xuan nodded, recognizing Bai Wei's concerns.
但现在能保持冷静。
However, staying calm has probably saved my life for now. So for the moment, let's... As Lo Xuan heard raindrops striking the awning, a hissing sound quickly followed, culminating in a deafening crash of shattering glass.
老白，
Oh god,
先出去。
he's back. Bai, run. Get out first. She kicked Bai Wei's swivel chair out of the way and bent down to draw her handgun. As she disengaged the safety, she opened fire on the deadwood monster that had burst into the clinic. Bullets hit it, but it twisted and writhed, pulling itself completely into the cramped clinic, while a foul stench filled the air. Bai Wei pushed to the doorway by the momentum of the chair, opened the door and crashed into the clinic's lobby to begin evacuating the night shift staff. Jesus Christ, Gareth. In the bright light of the clinic, Lo Xuan could finally see the monster clearly. It was less a monster of deadwood and more a black, withered skeleton, uneven and gaunt. Now lacking muscles, nerves and organs, all of which it seemed to want from Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan fired off her remaining 4 bullets without hesitation, quickly swapping the empty magazine for a full one that she had ready, prepared for another round. The monster seemed overwhelmed by the onslaught. It thrashed its black, muscular parts, flinging a large medical cabinet toward Liu Xuan. The heavy metal cabinet, mixed with shards of glass, hurtled toward her. Uh-oh. Forced to cease fire, she dodged the cabinet, but a flying medicine jar, almost tripped her, causing her to stagger. Taking advantage of her momentary imbalance, the deadwood monster leapt toward Liu Xuan, charging directly at her. The impact hit Lo Xuan hard in the chest, sending her flying out of the clinic like a stunt actor on wires. She tumbled to the ground, quickly regaining her footing and sprinting toward a nearby storage room. As she ran, she noticed several gashes across her chest where the monster's branches had struck her, with blood slowly seeping out. Glancing back to make sure the deadwood monster hadn't followed, she checked the palm of her left hand. Thankfully, there were no wild dancing numbers this time. The monster, typically aggressive, hesitated and moved cautiously. It coiled its body and crept slowly into the storage room, its head-like structure swaying unnervingly. Lo Xuan contemplated attacking the clump of black muscle again, hoping it might be more effective, but she suddenly noticed something odd about the monster.
不对，他没看着我。
It's not looking at me. The deadwood monster wasn't alerted to a gun. Instead, its curled body was aimed slightly to the right of her. Keeping her gun aimed at the deadwood, Lo Xuan quickly glanced to her right. Oh, from the shadows, a monster that was almost but not quite human approached her. It had a face eerily similar to a human's, and from her angle it seemed to be smiling. The monster swung a thick tail, nearly a meter long, its body covered in pale, fine hair, and sported long grey hair, looking almost human. However, its lower half had the bent legs, typical of feline animals. Liu Xuan slowly backed away. but the pale monster sped up its crawl toward her, clearly targeting her. But that thought lasted only a moment. Oh my god, what the fuck? The pale monster turned its face devoid of eyes toward the ground, and then opened its mouth, a vast maw that occupied half its head, filled with blade-like fangs. Lo Xuan screamed and fell back onto the ground, but the grotesque display was far from over. The monster lifted its head, revealing a crack that stretched from the base of its thumb across the wrist. Suddenly the crack widened, exposing a rugged black interior from which a dark red tongue emerged. Shaking, Lo Xuan also turned her left hand. The black oval remained unchanged, but the connection between her and the monster was unmistakable. I'm sorry, what are we saying? Have we got a log? Let's look at that again. Right. Turns its face devoid of eyes toward the ground, and opened its mouth. The grotesque display was far from over. The monster lifted its left hand, revealing a crack that stretched from the... and we don't know the rest. Awesome. Oops. Oh, god damn it. We can't see what its hand looks like. Okay, whatever. That's fine. I'll deal with it. The monster then turned its attention to the wounds on Liu Xuan's chest. It bent forward and began crawling toward her on all fours. Stay back! Don't move, or I'll shoot! Liu Xuan warned, perhaps unnerved by the monster's disturbing human-like appearance. However, it ignored her warning and accelerated its pace. Before Liu Xuan could raise her gun, the monster had already lunged its arms. No, hang on. That's not what you said. Whatever. Read it properly. Now on the ground, the monster's head opened wider, and its thicker, more agile tongue licked at Liu Xuan's bleeding wounds. Running along the surface of the tongue were black lines identical to those on the palm of her left hand. Liu Xuan threw her head back, her teeth chattering as she gripped the gun tightly, her fingernails digging painfully into her skin. The deadwood monster, seemingly unable to restrain itself any longer, suspected that the pale intruder was there to steal its prey. However, with the chance to restore its own body so close, it wasn't about to relinquish its opportunity. It had spent too much time in the sewers, subsisting on filthy water. The pale monster acted first. Organs on either side of its head suddenly opened, and in the next instant, it darted beneath the deadwood. What happened next was something Liu Xuan could never have imagined. Accompanied by the sounds of cracking wood chips, and the heavy tearing of bark, the pale monster began to feed. Its massive mouth, positioned atop its head, tore open the deadwood's body and started to devour it. To Liu Xuan, the deadwood seemed to crumble like a chocolate wafer, scattering fragments as it was consumed by the pale monster's head. The deadwood thrashed wildly, cracking the walls of the warehouse and leaving dark scratches where signs hung. Meanwhile, the small predator used its strong tail to stabilize itself, treating the deadwood's resistance as if it were merely the swaying of a revolving restaurant, and continued to gorge itself. Its left hand even reached directly into the horrific crack in the deadwood that had been feeding on Liu Xuan's arm, extracting soft tissues to stuff into its gaping maw. Liu Xuan slowly stood up, leaning against the wall corner. The wall corner. She was in the corner of the room, or corner of the wall, I guess. Debris scattering around her, and black fluid from the deadwood's shattered body pulled at her feet. She gripped her handgun, unsure of what to do next. All the knowledge and skills she had seemed useless against this surreal scene. The small weapon in her hand was her only support. But if the pale monster turned its appetite toward her next, would the handgun really be effective? Her mind briefly conjured a terrifying scenario. An earthquake struck the sea where the cruise ship sailed. Massive waves swiftly rose and morphed into the shape of a pale monster, effortlessly slicing the cruise ship in half. 3 seconds later, Lao Shuan was jolted back to reality. The deadwood monster had vanished, leaving only fragments and a pool of black liquid on the ground. The scene before her was more eerie than anything she could have imagined. The predator lay on the ground, its face resembling a human's, pressed against the earth, while its mouth on top of its head swept up the remaining debris with its tongue. Lao Shuan aimed her gun at it, calculating where to shoot to maximize the likelihood of hit. Contentedly, the pale monster stood up, its agile tongue licked around its mouth before closing its head. It then began to crawl toward Lu Xuan once again. Lu Xuan felt her hand holding the gun trembling slightly and her vision blur. She knew her body was fine, it was her nerves getting the better of her. She'd faced the deadwood monster without flinching, so why did this seemingly more benign? Why was this seemingly more benign pale monster unsettle her so much? Why did this seemingly more benign pale monster unsettle her so much? We got there. The monster paused in front of Lu Xuan, paced around her like a dog, and then settled down at her feet. It folded in the appendages it had previously extended, now seemingly completely relaxed. Lu Xuan rotated the gun toward its head. As Lu Xuan considered whether she could have handled the deadwood monster alone, had this pale monster not appeared, she questioned its intentions. Was it hostile? Should she ignore the resemblances it bore to her? She answered these doubts with a resolute no, then secured the safety on her handgun, and tucked it into her coat. Carefully, she bent down and reached out to touch the pale monster's fur. The moment she made contact, she felt the warmth of a living being, and the rhythmic thumping of its heartbeat, a familiar, comforting sensation that slightly narrowed the distance between them. Gradually, Lao Xuan placed her hand on the monster. In response, its thick tail rose quietly, pressing against her back to support her weight and curling at a comfortable angle to allow her to sit and rest. The seemingly friendly monster extended its neck and turned its head to gently touch Liu Xuan's cheek. The hard ridges around its massive mouth scraped uncomfortably against her skin, but she dared not move abruptly, choosing instead to reluctantly appreciate this dangerous act of kindness. You still dream about that ship? Come and find me through the door. Okay, what's happening? Is that the end of the demo? A black hole in a hand floods something? A beautiful and dangerous monster girl? An undemonstrative something? Explore the world of paradoxes something? Beyond the endless horror and monstrosity. Okay. Yeah. White-Eye Devotee. Scholar of the something with the power of bonding. Something with thousands, unprecedented wealth and fortune rolled into. Part 2 in the Heart of the Sea. Alright, well I guess we're going to leave it there for now. Plenty of intrigue with this game, which we all know what it's called, right? I certainly do. I'm just gonna buy time for no particular reason. Raiding City Millions Recollections. Just came to me in my head. I knew what it was all this time. Okay, well, we're going to leave it there for now. Let me know if you want to see any more of Reigning City. It's certainly an intriguing story so far. I wonder whether it's set in the same world as the Chrono Jotter. There seems to be similar themes. But we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Reigning City Millions Recollections. Not Recollections, you idiot. Reigning City Millions Recollections. And I will see you next time. Have a good evening. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye. Bye 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 bye.